Redesigning School Counseling webinar for Renewal schools. This webinar is going to look at updating your goal statement. My name is Sue Reynolds. I'm the Executive Director with the American Student Achievement Institute. Here's today's agenda. We'll begin with a review of the RSC beliefs and the RSC process. Then this month, we'll talk about this month's activities, including a pre-meeting mailing, and then we'll walk through the meeting on program goals. We'll talk about each of the submissions that come in this month and in the rubric for those submissions, and then we'll look at the online system. So here's our review. We'll begin with the RSC beliefs. In RSC is based on the foundational belief that school counseling programs help students make sound choices in areas that impact academic success. So RSC very much connects to academic success. This is the what we call the school counseling pyramid that shows how school counseling impacts achievement. And the idea is that when students are involved in sound guidance and counseling programs, they tend to make better choices in areas that impact achievement, and as a result of that, achievement goes up. So as we're designing the RSC school counseling program, we're going to just work that pyramid backwards. And today in the goals section, we're going to begin by talking with our advisory council about the school's achievement goals, and then we'll look at what are the student choices that kids need to make in order to reach those achievement goals. Those student choices will become our program goals. And then at a future meeting, we'll look at what guidance and counseling activities then do we need to put in place in order to help students make our targeted student choices. So here's the process we'll use. The very first thing we've done already is to get ready. We created the steering team, we collected data, we did the self-studies, and we put together an advisory council. Then in August, we had our first meeting with our advisory council, and the focus of that meeting was to revisit your vision statement and to make adjustments if needed. And then in September, the meeting that we're talking about today, our focus with our advisory council is to set our program goals. Or in other words, what student choices do we want kids to make so that they can be more successful in school and prepare for success at the next educational level. Then in October, we'll talk about expanding our resources and taking a subset of our program goals that we'll call priority goals. Those are goals that we're really going to work on hard during next school year. Then in November, we'll look at root causes. We'll pull in another set of data where we look at why aren't kids making the choices that we want them to make. We'll look at guidance data. Maybe they don't have the knowledge they need to make those choices. We'll look at counseling data. Maybe there's personal social issues that are interfering with kids' ability to make sound choices. And we'll look at opportunity data. Maybe kids have knowledge and they don't have social personal issues, but we're just not giving them the opportunities that they need to make sound choices. So that's in November, that root cause analysis. And then in December, we'll define, okay, what activities are we going to do next year in order to address those root causes. And we'll look at guidance activities, counseling activities, advocacy, and management activities. Then, during the second semester, we'll do the preparation. We'll develop guidance lessons, program calendar, our individual counselor calendars, and our annual budget. So those things will happen during the second semester. So let's see real quickly if anybody has any questions. If so, stick your hand up. And I'm looking through and I'm not seeing any questions. Okay, so we'll move on. So this month's task is to prep for Advisory Council Meeting 2. So in this webinar, we're prepping for the second meeting of your Advisory Council. And in this meeting, your Advisory Council will be advising you on your program goals. So there's a pre-meeting memo that I'd like to go over with you. The pre-meeting mailing includes two things, and this is a mailing that you'll send to your Advisory Council a couple of weeks before you have your meeting. One thing in this mailing will be a cover memo that gives instructions. And then you also will include your student achievement goals from your school improvement plan. We have a template where you can just drop those goals in from your school improvement plan, or if you have some other document that you can send people so that they understand quickly what your achievement goals are for your school, that would be fine to use as well. Now, the task that your folks will do is they will go to a website where they can find public data for your school. And I just realized I'm going to correct that real quickly. There should be dashes in here. So it's our website /RSC/public or -public-data. Okay. Then what we're asking your advisory council members to do is to open up, and it gives them instructions about how to do this, open up a summary data report. And then they've got all this data for your students from your survey. And they're going to check the choices that they think all kids should make in your school in order to be successful at school. The likelihood is that they may have 40, 50, 60 different choices checked. And that's fine because there are a lot of choices that kids need to make. So they'll come back to your meeting with this list of all of these student choices and with the ones checked that they think that all students in the school need to make those choices. Things like turning in homework or asking for help when they're confused or doing a campus visit, all of those choices that kids make when they're successful at school. Then also on that list, we're going to ask them to put a star next to choices that are concerning to them because too few students are making that choice. So for example, the choice to turn in homework, they maybe have a check on that because they think it's something that all kids should do, but then they've also put a star on turning in homework because the data shows that too few students are doing that. The concerning data we will discuss at a future meeting. The data that's checked we'll discuss at this meeting this month. Then the second part of the instructions to the advisory council, ask them to open up drill-down reports, and it gives them instructions for how to do that. So they'll open up a drill-down report for drill-downs that are of interest to them. So they may want to look at the gender drill-down report or the ethnicity drill-down report or the free and reduced lunch drill-down report. And then they're looking to see, are there student groups that in general are making sound choices at a lower rate than their peers? We want them to bring that information back to you as well, so that if they've discovered that there's a guidance gap between paid lunch kids and free and reduced lunch kids, we've got that information, they have found that data, and they're bringing it to the meeting with you. It takes an hour or two to do this pre-meeting mailing or pre-meeting task, and with people doing that before your meeting, it's going to cut down on the length of your meeting considerably. Okay, so let's then look at the walkthrough for this meeting. And oops, if I can get to my desktop, there we go. And here are the slides for the meeting. So, cover slide, introductions, the review, and it's basically the same review that we just went through. So I'll just kind of quickly go through these slides. And then we come to the slide that talks about today. So we're saying to your advisory council that today we're going to talk about our program goals. We're going to look at our school's achievement goals, and then we're going to have discussions about what our school counseling program goals should make. So the main question today is, what choices should all students make, ideally, in order for our school to reach its academic goals or its achievement goals? We need to remind people how we express data. So in RSC, data is always expressed as the percentage of students who meet a baseline. For example, the percentage of all students who report bullying when they observe it. our baseline data is 65% and our target data is 85%. Another example might be, I'm going to go to the second to the last one, student group is all 8th graders, create a high school course plan. So there we've got a subgroup. It's not all students in the middle school, but it's just one grade level. So all 8th graders create a high school course plan. Baseline data is 0 because we've never asked students to do that before. Our follow-up, our target data is 100%. We want to have all kids do that by the end of next year. And then we can also do a student group that is more specific. So we might say that the student group is boys, and our goal is for that all boys will ask for extra help in class. Our baseline data is 52%. Are reporting that they're asking for extra help, and we'd like that to go up to 70%. And then the timeline for all of our goals in RSC is always 1 year out, so by the end of next school year. So just reminding people how we express data in RSC. It's always the percentage of a student group who reach a benchmark. We've got baseline data, and we've got target data. Okay, so then we need to look at the school's achievement goals, because everything has to be kind of with that at the forefront. And here's a template where you can just drop in the achievement goals from your school improvement plan. So the student group might be all 4th graders. The benchmark is pass I-STEP, English Language Arts. Current data is 77%, and when our target data in the school improvement plan is 81%. And then up at the top, you would indicate the years that the school improvement plan, that these goals were from. Okay, and then we'll get into your program goals, and we're reminding people that we're focusing on the student choice goals, which are our program goals. So all of our program goals are going to focus on helping kids make better choices. So as we look at our program goals, the key question is, what choice should all students make? Because those choices will enable students to reach our school's academic goals, succeed at the next educational level, and then ultimately succeed in post-secondary education and succeed in a global economy. So what choices do we want kids to make while they're at our school? So the first thing we want to do is create a list of possible goals. So we're asking folks to review the student choice report that they brought with them. And on the student choice report that they brought with them from their homework, from their pre-meeting task, they've checked the choices that they think that all kids should make. So that's going to be one set of our program goals. And then we're going to ask, in addition to all of those program goals that are on that list, are there any additional student choices that students should make that are not on that report? And it may be that, they come up with choices that are not on the student choice report that they think your students should make, that we want to add to our list of possible program goals. And then after they have reported out all of the possible goals from the list and any that they've added to the list, then we're going to do an instagraph. And an instagraph is a way to very quickly see what people believe. And basically, we write all of the possible goals on the instagraph, and then they place sticky dots above. And actually, I apologize, that instruction is wrong here. Sticky dots above the goals that they do not feel are important for students to make while at your school. Okay, so this is a little different than the instructions that we've given you on past instagraphs. This time we're not working to include things in the list, we're working to exclude things from the list. So we're going to have your advisory council place sticky dots above any goals that they don't feel are important. So let's look at that instagraph and kind of see how that goes. There, when you get the instagraphs, they are already, oops, I got the wrong instagraph here. They are already pre-populated with the possible goals from the Student Choices report. So on the Student Choices report, the very first question is about the percentage of students who plan to continue their education after high school. And if it's a current goal, when you're preparing this infographic, if it's a current goal, you would put an X in this column just to indicate that this is a current goal. And then the infographic is all prepared based on the report that they worked with for their pre-meeting task. So if they've decided that they don't think it's necessary for all kids in the school to attend a college fair, that's not a choice that they think kids would make, they would just put a sticky dot or an X in the first column. The next person who comes up, if they also believe that kids should not make a choice to attend a college fair, they would put a sticky dot in the next one or an X in the next column. So we're building a bar graph across. In the part of the discussion where you asked, are there any additional choices that should be on this list? If there are, on the spot in the middle of your meeting, just add those additional choices down at the bottom of the page. All students should choose to, and then whatever else the choice is. Remember, all responses are honored, even if it's a response that's off the wall. We're just going to put it on there, and then other people will vote if it's something that's off the wall. They'll vote to take it off when they put their sticky dots on. So again, this infographic is a little bit different because we're working to exclude things from the list instead of include things. The instructions on the infographic say that check the choices that students do not need to make in order to be successful in school. So, and it may be that there are people that don't have any X's to put up, that they think kids should make all of these choices, and that's fine. When you get online into the manual, you'll see that there are different versions of this document. There's a high school version, a middle school version, and an elementary school version. And each infographic is aligned with the survey for that grade level. If you're in a 712 building, you would need to look at both the infographic for the middle school students and the infographic for the high school students. Or if you're in a K-8, you would do the infographics for the elementary and the infographics for the middle. Okay, so that's the infographics. That gets us through the first part of the meeting. And so we're placing sticky dots along with the choices that we think are not important for kids to make. That will give you your feedback, your input for your program goals as you develop them after the meeting. Then the second part of the meeting is we want to look at guidance gaps. So in this part of the discussion, we're brainstorming, are there some groups of students that make sound choices at a rate that is less than their peers? And then to add to this discussion, we're asking people to also talk about what data led you to think this. So it's not just their hunches that free-reduced lunch kids make sound choices at a different rate than paid lunch kids, or Hispanic kids make choices at a different rate than white kids, but they're actually backing up that opinion with data. So we're doing that brainstorm, and it's just a discussion. And after the brainstorm, we're going to another infographic, and this time they're placing sticky dots across some student groups that they believe are making choices at a rate that is less than their peers. So each person would go up, and I'll show you that infographic. So here's what that infographic looks like. And you can see it's got all of the different breakdowns along the left. And then they would just put their an X or their sticky dot across from the groups that they feel are not making choices at a rate that's equivalent to their peers. This information will help you decide later when you're designing activities, are you going to tweak that activity so that it engages, in this case, I just put the X across from free and reduced, so that it would engage free and reduced lunch students at a greater rate than paid lunch students. You know, you'd be thinking as you designed your activities, what can I do with this activity so it's really engaging and not limiting to free and reduced lunch kids. Or there may be some activities that you might want to limit to enrollment in just to free and reduced lunch students. You know, if there's activities, say, around financial aid or whatever, that you really might want to really hit that group hard. So, so this is just information that will help you tweak your activities later. Okay, so that's that Instagraph. And two, there may be some people that find that they can't find any gaps. I think that would be surprising because in most of the rural schools there are gaps in free reduced lunch and paid lunch, in the urban schools too. So probably everybody's going to find some gaps between free and reduced lunch and paid lunch students. But if a person says, you know, I looked at all this data and I'm not finding any gaps, then that's fine if they don't put any sticky dots up. That's fine. We don't force them to identify a gap if they don't see that in the data. Okay. So we've gone to that Instagraph. And then finally, the next thing we're doing is looking ahead. And we're saying that after today, the steering team will create program goals based on the Advisory Council's input from today's meeting. And then we're looking ahead at meeting 3, we're going to expand resources so that we have as much time, energy, and funding available as possible. And then when we have expanded our resources, then right then and there we'll say, okay, how many of these goals can we tackle as priority goals? When we did this before with you, this was 2 different meetings, and we experimented last year with combining these into one meeting, and it worked really well. We just expand resources, and we say, okay, that's how much time and energy and funding we have. Now, how many of these goals can we really tackle as priority goals? Then, looking ahead, we say at meeting 4, then we're going to study data to help us decide why students are not making those priority choices. And then at meeting 5, once we know why kids aren't making those priority choices, then we'll explore different activities we can do to help kids make those choices. And that's it. So then we're thanking people for coming and closing the meeting. This meeting I anticipate would be if you do the pre-meeting task ahead of time, this meeting with the discussion should be a good 1.5 to 2 hour meeting. I wouldn't try to condense this meeting too much because then that will really cut back on the discussion. The other possibility that you could do is that if you don't want to have people have a pre-meeting activity, you could actually have 2 meetings. Do one meeting where everybody just gets online, do it in the computer lab, everybody gets online and does the pre-meeting task to get together, and then a second meeting, which would be the meeting that we just went through. I think there's some really advantages to looking at that data together, to have you there to ask questions to as they're looking to the data. But again, we're always trying to respect people's time, and if you don't want to turn this into 2 meetings, you could just have them do the data analysis as a pre-meeting activity. So, okay, so I'm going to pause there. Let's see who has questions.
There are no written questions, Sue.
Okay, no questions. Okay, good. So, in the walkthrough,
hold on here.
We did get okay.
A couple of them just popped up here.
False alarm.
Hold on just a second.
Can I unmute them?
Yes. Oh, Joanne has a question about counselor logs. I remember doing them in previous years. When do we start them? Also, how long do we log our time?
Good questions. When we met last spring, face-to-face, we asked you to start doing your counselor time task logs then, and they actually will continue until the meeting where we look at resources, which for, let me look at my calendar real quickly, for you, that would be, let's see, root cause, that would be December. So hopefully everybody's been doing their time task logs. If not, just start doing them right now. And we'll do those until December. And then we'll pull that data into the December meeting where you'll talk about the data, your time use and your funding and all those resources, and then try to find ways to expand their resources.
Okay, and Julie Quigley has a question. She wants to know, how do we obtain the survey code?
If you haven't surveyed, so I think everybody except maybe one of you, maybe two, surveyed last spring. However, you're in luck because the national schools that we're working with are surveying right now. So the survey is live. It'll be live between now and September 13th. So you've got a week and a half to survey kids if you haven't surveyed them yet. Remember, if you're surveying kids now, it's very, very important that you tell the students to take the survey for the grade that they were in last year. So you're going to give your 8th graders the 7th grade code. You're going to give your 9th graders the 8th grade code. It means that the lowest grade level in your school will not be surveying because you won't be able to give them a code from a previous school. And to get the codes, just go into the new system, click on Student Survey in the left navigation bar. When we get online, I'll show you that real quickly. And then just click on Survey Setup, and because you're seeking Gold Star, you want to choose all of the survey sets, and then just hit Submit, and your codes will pop up. So pretty easy. And that's live now, and it will become not live at the end of the day on September 13th. So a week and a half to survey as many kids as you can.
Okay, that's all of the questions that I see.
Okay. One other thing with this meeting coming up, these are the, oh, my tabs didn't hold, but this is the agenda for this meeting that's coming up. So introductions, review for 20 minutes, going over your school improvement plan achievement goals for about 15 minutes, then 40 minutes to work on setting up your school counseling program goals, doing the Instagraph, then 20 minutes to talk about the guidance gaps and to do that Instagraph, and then looking ahead for about 5 minutes and then adjourning. So I'm really anticipating a good hour and a half to 2-hour meeting on this one. Okay, so let's talk about submissions. The achievement goals, those are again from your school improvement plan. All you need to do with those is upload them into our system, so you can use our template or some other document that you've got and just upload them, and then they'll be there for you in the future. On the program goals, those get entered online, and the rubric items are that the program goals are present. The program goals reflect desired student choices that impact student achievement, and at least one program goal targets a specific student group. So you've got one goal that's targeting a group that's experiencing a guidance gap. So that's program goals. And then your minutes, the rubric items are the same for the minutes as last month. We want to include the names of the people that are present and the groups that they represent. The minutes present a summary of the activities and the discussion, and they contain references to specific people who have contributed ideas and then what the idea was that they contributed. Okay, so let's look at the online system. First of all, the online system, you may remember that back in June there were some tasks that we didn't have live yet in the online system. And we're still working on that. We've got almost all of them live. I know our programmers are working right now as we speak on the program goals analysis. I'm going to show you the mock-up that we have for the program goals analysis, and today or tomorrow that should be live when you get online. But basically, on the program goals analysis, what the computer's doing is it's pulling in your priority goals that you set last year. And it's showing you what the target data was that you set for the priority goal, and then what your actual data was. It will have your most current actual data. And then you're just being asked, did you meet your goal, yes or no? And then what advice do you have for other schools who may have this goal? What we're building here is a database of advice for schools that have similar goals. And plus helping you kind of think through, you know, did you meet your goal and what you need to do differently next time, and et cetera. So if when you get into this, you're finding that you don't have priority goals for some reason, you can set up your priority goals, change your priority goals from last year by clicking this link here, or it'll be a link that looks something like that. Go in and really make sure that you've cleaned up your priority goals, and then go into the priority goals analysis to analyze them. And then down the road, I think one of the things that we're going to be able to provide, which I think will be really cool, is that we can say to schools, okay, if you have the goal to almost always turn, that you want students to choose to almost always turn their homework in on time, here's what other schools in the past who have had that goal, here's the advice that they're giving you. And so all the advice that you've put in there will benefit future schools. So, okay, so that's the program goals analysis. If it's not live now, it will be live shortly. And then these other links that we'll need to go back now and just kind of catch up on real quickly. On step 2, activity completion, that's just a list of the activities from last year, and you just check off the ones that you complete, and it will tell you, that it will give you a percentage of all the activities that you plan to do, what percentage did you fully complete. Resource utilization, that is all of the resources that are available for free to Indiana school counselors, and it's just asking you to indicate which ones you're using. We've been able to use that data, our organization has, and Learn More has, to advocate for funding to maintain the Learn More resources and to add resources. So that data is really important for us to advocate on your behalf at the state level. And then the lesson analysis, that's something that ASCA asks you to do. When you click on that, it'll give you all of your lesson plans. It'll ask you to identify a handful that you want to analyze, and then it just asks you questions about the lesson, and you go in and analyze that handful of lessons. Okay, so let's go online then, and we'll look at doing that. Okay, so I am logged in as Demo School, which is an Indiana school, and I'm going to go into the Manual tab, first of all, just to show you that for Meeting 2, oops, I've got the wrong seat. That's a mistake. Don't do what I just did. I was on the first year tab, couldn't figure out why I wasn't finding things because I wasn't on the right tab. So I'm on the Renewal tab, and then here's Meeting 2. So here's the handouts for the meeting, including the presentation that we just went over. And then here's tools for Meeting 2, the prep for Meeting 2, the facilitator notes. These are all brand new. We just recreated all those in the past few days. Here's the pre-meeting memo for you to send out to folks. And then the template for your achievement goals, the Instagraphs, and then tasks following Meeting 2. So everything you need is right there. Then let's go to the Process tab. And on the Process tab, I make sure I've got Renewal again. On the Process tab, you can see here's that June section, and our programmer must still be working on this enter edit on the priority goals analysis because we're not quite hot yet. That'll turn blue when it's hot. But the rest of the things are hot. We'll get the reports out fairly soon as well. And then if I go down to the September tasks, today's webcast, after it's archived, will appear here. So if you want to see the webcast later or review it, especially if you're not going to do this meeting for next month or the month after, you can watch this webcast by just clicking here. And then here's sending the pre-meeting memo and achievement goals. Here's 2 links where you can just download those. And then uploading your achievement goals. Here's the uploader button. Conducting advisory council meeting 2. This takes you to the manual section for doing that. And then what I want to look at is entering the program goals. So on program goals, I'm going to click on Enter. And it's important to follow the instructions at the top. So you're going to conduct the meeting. Then you're going to add suggested program goals. So if there's program goals that you want to add that the system is suggesting, just click here, and that will bring up all of the goals that the system suggests, and you just decide what grade level and what student group that you want to meet that goal. I might mention that all of these goals, this is another really cool and new thing, all of these goals are aligned with the survey. So if you select a suggested program goal, the system will automatically put in survey data as your baseline data and as your follow-up data. It automatically happens. You can add different types of data if there's something else you want to count, but by default it will put in the survey data on your goals for you. You don't have to do that anymore yourself. The system just does it all. So we're adding any program goals that you might want to include, and then add suggested program goals. Okay, so that's that step. Then the next part is add goals that you create. So let's say that, I'm going to go back to the suggested program goals. Let's say you like this idea, plan to go to college, but you don't like the way it's worded. You want it to say plan to go to post-secondary. So I'm not going to use the suggested goal, and I can't use the survey data because the survey data is worded this way. But I want to have a goal that says I plan to go to post-secondary education. So I'd go to program goals that you create, click on Enter, and you get this little pop-up screen. I think this is so easy. And you just type in what you want to include there. So to impact the percentage of students who plan to attend post-secondary education. And then if you're targeting all grades, that's fine. If you're targeting all students, that's fine. But you can also change this to be just your 7th graders, and maybe your data says that your girls are having no problem with this goal, but it's just the boys. And then you create a goal for that group of students, that subgroup, and then save that goal. Now, if you create a goal, there's no survey data to go with it. You'll have to figure out something to count yourself, but there's lots of ways to do that. You could give your own survey, or sometimes you have things in your office like for your course plan that you could get out and count, the percentage of students who say they plan to attend post-secondary education. Okay, so that's program goals that you create. And then the program goals that you put in a previous year will be down here. And if you want to edit any of the program goals that are down below, you need to do it this way. Let's say you didn't like this one, almost always turn my homework in on time. Let's say you wanted to just take out the words almost always. So I can't edit this because it was a suggested goal and it's tied to survey data. So what I would have to do is delete it and then add a new goal the way you want it to be worded. So if there's any of your current program goals that you want to edit, you do it below, which is why we wrote in below here. So you go in and you edit it below. If it's a suggested goal, it cannot be edited because then we can't connect the data to it. But you can delete it and then add whatever you want to add in its place. If it's not a suggested goal, let me see if I have any here. I think all of these are going to be. But if it's not a suggested goal, then the edit button will be hot, and you can just click on that and go in and edit the goal that you created if you want to do that. So, okay, so that's how to get your goals in. I think the most important thing to remember is that when you get to this section, just follow steps 1 through 5 in the order that they're listed. And then the other thing that I'd really remember on this section is that if you use a suggested program goal, it's going to auto-populate the survey data for you. And just looking ahead on priority goals, that now is in 2 steps. You're going to select your priority goals, and let me just go ahead and select one here. I've got some selected. So I've got some priority goals already selected, and then the system is going to ask you to put in data only for your priority goals. We're not putting in data any longer for all goals, just the priority goals. Simplifies things a little bit. And you can see that when the priority goal is from the survey, if it's one of the suggested program goals, priority goals, then the system auto-populates your data in there for you. But you don't have to use the survey data. Let's say that you wanted, instead of doing the survey, you wanted to just count how many 4-year course plans do you have in your file drawer. So then you could say, I don't want to use survey data, I'm going to count other data, and I'd switch, and that's then going to give me a text box now so that I can say I'm going to count the percentage of students who have a course plan in their counselor's file drawer. And then if I decide I want to go back, I can just go back and say, no, I think I want to use survey data. And I can just go back, and that'll pop up the survey data for me again. So, I think this is really, really simplified. It makes the data so much easier, and I think it saves counselors a ton of time. But just remember that you only get data, auto-populated data in these questions if you have used the suggested program goal. Okay, so let's go back to the process tab, and just wrapping up here. For Renewal School, in the process tab for September, I've entered my program goals, and then the minutes, you know how to do that, same as last month, and then please review the rubric items, make sure that you've got all of the rubric items covered before you submit this to DOE. Okay, so I think that is it. And let's see what questions we have.
I don't see any questions, Sue.
Okay. Okay, one final thing. The facilitator guide has a lot of tips in it this month. I'd really make sure I read your facilitator guide. And I think if you have not done the first meeting of the advisory council, I would really make sure that you get that one done right away. And if possible to get caught up, that might be good, because then these webinars are coming at the teachable moment as you're ready to go into that meeting. So, so if you can get caught up, that would be great. If not, I totally understand, and you know, we've always said that this is to be done at the pace that makes most sense for you. So if there's a good reason for slowing down a bit, that works as well. So, okay, so thank you so much for participating in this webcast. And I always like to leave you with this. Remember that as a school counselor, you make a difference in the lives of young people. Please feel free to give us a call if you need help. And we wish you lots of luck as you go through September and as you meet with your advisory council. Thank you.